Hey guys, Mr. Hippie here and welcome to the very first Blender tutorial on this channel. Today we are going to be making something cool. We are going to be making this cool looking render that I posted on my Instagram quite recently. So if you don't have Blender installed on your computer, just go ahead and download this from Blender's official download page. I am using Blender 2.90, so I'm just going to open up Blender. Firstly, we are going to be segmenting this entire project in 4 different parts. First, we got our preparation. Then we are going to be modeling the entire scene, and then we are going to be shading it, and finally we are going to be rendering it out. So firstly, let's start with the preparation. First of all, go to your edit button over here, go to preferences, go to your add-on section over here and type in Node Wrangler. And you can see that we have got Node Wrangler add-on over here. If you don't have this enabled over here, you can just click on this and it will be enabled. Next thing, just close it up. Next thing, just go over to this render properties over here, click on it, and next to this render engine, make sure that you have EEVEE rendering engine activated. By the way, if you're going to render this out, you can use both EEVEE and Cycles. I am personally going to be using EEVEE for right now, and when I'm going to render it out, I'm just going to be using Cycles. So for now, EEVEE. So we are currently done with the preparation part, so we can just hop into our modeling part. All right, so let's get into the modeling part. Firstly, select this default cube over here, then go to your modifier properties, which is this wrench looking thing over here, and go and add a bevel modifier. So if I zoom in closer, you can see that what bevel modifier does is it smooths out the harsh edges of any kind of object. So as you can see, it is not really looking that smooth. So if you want to make this more smooth, you can just come over here in the segments over here, just make this 10. And now you can see that the corners are looking much smoother. So I don't really like the way, the amount of beveling going around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this amount over here and I'm going to press shift and I'm going to pull it down so that it becomes something like this. Okay, and now select this cube once again, press shift plus D, and what it does is it creates a duplicate of it. So if you right click on your mouse, the duplicate cube will go back to its former position. So right now we have two cubes, the original default cube and now the duplicated cube, which is named cube.001. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this duplicate cube over here, and I'm going to go to this modifier properties over here, and I'm going to add in a wireframe modifier. So as you can see what the wireframe modifier is doing right now, make sure that your wireframe modifier is above your bevel modifier. So to do that, just grab this wireframe modifier over here and just place it above the bevel modifier. So if I zoom in closer, you can see that this bevel modifier is like quite thin. If I want to increase the thickness of this wireframe, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this thickness section over here and I'm going to increase the thickness to a place which I like. I'm going to keep my thickness to something like this. Now we have to add those spheres that you saw in the final render. Press shift plus A and go to this mesh and then add a UV sphere. So right now the UV sphere is added, but you can't really see it because it is inside this cube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press G, and what that does is it grabs that UV sphere and I'm going to pull this outside, something like this. So if I zoom this, you can see that this UV sphere is really low poly. So if you want to make this more smooth, just go to this modifier properties over here, add in a subdivision surface. Now you can see it is much smoother, but it is not really that smooth right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to this levels viewport and I'm gonna make this 2, and now it is looking really smooth, but still you can see all these polygons over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click on this and I'm gonna shade smooth. So now you can see that it is like completely smooth and stuff. So I'm gonna place this UV sphere somewhere over here and I'm gonna scale this down by pressing S. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make duplicates of this UV sphere from here. I'm gonna scale this down. I'm gonna make multiple copies of this, and I'm gonna do this for all the 4 sides of this UV sphere. I'm gonna do this for this side, this side, this side, as well as this side. So I'm just gonna do it right now very quickly, and since this is a repetitive process, I'm just going to time lapse this for you guys. Okay. So as you can see, I have done modeling one of these cubes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all of these objects over here, and make sure you don't select in your light and your camera. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press Shift D, and I'm gonna duplicate it. I'm gonna put one right over here. I'm gonna scale this down, and I'm gonna rotate this, and I'm gonna place this somewhat closer over here like this, and then I'm gonna press Shift D, and I'm gonna place one right over here, and I'm gonna rotate this once again, scale this a little bit, and I'm gonna duplicate this once more, place one over here, G, Z to move this down a bit, scale this down, G, Z to move this up, okay, and G, X to move this front a bit like this, and I'm gonna rotate this. So we are finally done with our modeling part. So what I'm gonna do as a creative choice is I'm gonna take this small cube over here, and I'm gonna press X and delete it. I think this really looks cool, and it goes well with this entire composition. So now, since we are done with the modeling part, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place my camera so that we have no issues while shading this. So take a position in which this composition looks better. So I'm gonna take this view over here, and we already have a camera in our scene. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna snap that camera to this view. So what I'm gonna do is press Alt, Control, and 0, and now you can see that we are currently in our camera view. And if you want to get out of your camera view, just press 0, and if you want to get into your camera view, just press 0 on your num key. So as you can see that we have our camera in place. So right now, as you can see that this aspect ratio is actually 16:9, and the resolution of this is 1920 by 1080. So if you're going to be uploading this on the Instagram, for instance, you're gonna notice that it's better to have like a 1:1 ratio. So to do that, it's very simple. Just go to this printer looking thing over here, which is also called the output properties. Go to this resolution X, and make this let's say 1500, and go to this Y and make this 1500 as well. And now you can see that we have got a square looking camera. So what I'm gonna do is, as you can see, some of these parts are getting out of this camera region. So I'm gonna place my camera so that everything is included into the view. So to do that, press G and place it somewhere here. So if you think that this view is somewhat too close to these objects, you can also move this away from these objects by pressing G, and if you press down on your middle mouse button and you drag it back, you can go back or front like this. So I'm gonna place mine over here. So since we're done with the modeling part, let's get into shading. So to do that, just go over to this shading tab over here, and now you can see that we are currently using the dev look mode. So the dev look mode is really cool because you already have an HDRI in place, and it is really cool for shading and stuff. So first of all, let's shade this UV sphere first. Okay, so select this UV sphere, and since this UV sphere doesn't have a default material installed on it, so what we're going to do is go over to this new button. Now you can see that we have got our default node setup. Here you can see that we have got a principal BSDF node connected to the surface of the material output. So this material output is used to show the shader that is used for this object. If I disconnect this principal BSDF from these material output, you can see that it goes completely black, which means that it doesn't really have any kind of shader on it. So this principal BSDF shader is a very basic shader in Blender. If you connect this principal BSDF to the surface of this material output, you can see that it becomes white. And why white? Because over here in this base color, it is white. So if you change this base color to any other color, you can see that the color is changing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this black, a little black, something like this. Okay, next up I'm going to go down to this roughness part over here, and I'm gonna drag this roughness down to 0, and now you can see that it has become like really shiny. Okay, next up what we're going to do is we're gonna copy this material to all the other UV spheres out here. So we have a lot and lot of UV spheres in this scene. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this material to all of these UV spheres. Right now in this object panel over here, you can see that we have got like tons and tons of UV spheres. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the first sphere over here, and I'm gonna press shift, and I'm gonna scroll down, and over here this is our last sphere. Left click, and remember to press down shift. So right now we have selected all of our spheres. Then I'm gonna press shift and select this sphere which has the material on it. I'm gonna shift and click on this, and then I'm gonna press Control and L, and then I'm gonna click on materials, and it's gonna take a little while, and now you can see that this material is copied over to all of these spheres over here. First of all, let's just select this wireframe over here, and as you can see that this does have a material applied on it, and it is the default principal BSDF. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this metallic. Okay, so what it does is it makes this metallic, but we have a small issue over here. You can see that this inner boxes are also getting that metallic shader. We don't really want that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Control Z, and I'm gonna revert it. I'm gonna tell you why it happened. It is because this inner box and this wireframe has the same material applied to both of them. So if you if you make one of these like orange, it will affect this inner cube and this wireframe. So Control Z, I'm gonna revert it back. So to fix that, I'm gonna select this wireframe, and I'm gonna go to this new material button over here. And what it does is it actually creates a new material for this wireframe alone. Okay, so now if I make any kind of changes to this wireframe, it is only going to be applied to this wireframe alone. So first of all, make this metallic. Okay, and make the roughness totally 0. Similarly, I'm going to apply this to all of these wireframes as well. So we are going to use the old trick. Select this wireframe over here, select this, and select the one with the material as the last one. Select this last one, and then press Control L, apply material, and now you can see that all of these wireframes has the same material applied to them. So finally, select this inner box, and what I'm going to do for this inner box is I'm gonna decrease the roughness. Okay, and now we are done with the shading part. So I'm gonna go back to the camera view by pressing 0, and now as you can see that we are currently in the dev loop mode. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the final rendered view. Just press Z key on your keyboard and go to this rendered option, and now you can see that it is like really dark. What happens is if you go to this world properties over here, you can see that the color of the world is like gray. So if you choose to make this white, it becomes white, or you can also change the color from here. So I'm not gonna do any of that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use an HDRI for this project, and HDRI is basically a 360 image of an environment. So I have already left links in the description to the HDRI that I'm going to be using in this project. First of all, to change this this weird background, just go over to this object panel over here and change it to world. And now you can see that we have got another node set up over here, and we have got two nodes. The first one is this world output, and the second one is this background. So if I disconnect it, it goes completely black, and if I connect this to the surface, it becomes like totally gray. And you can change the color from this color option over here. You can change this to any color you choose, but we're not gonna do that. We're gonna use an environment texture. Press Shift A on any of this place over here, and go to search and type in environment texture. And now what you have is another node property over here. We're gonna connect this color of this environment texture to the color of this background texture, and now you can see that everything goes like totally pink and stuff. So why is this happening is because we don't currently have an HDRI assigned to this environment texture. That is why it is completely pink. So let's just assign the HDRI. First of all, go to this open button over here and locate your HDRI from this browser over here. So I have mine in this download section, or you can also search for it. By the way, the name of this HDR is Peppermint Power Plant HDR. And if you download this, download the 4K version, because this 1K and 2K version will get pixelated very quickly. So use this 4K HDR, open image, and now you can see that we have got realistic environment, and it is also going to affect your scene as well, because the realistic lights is going to hit it, and this really looks very, very realistic if you use HDRIs. Now you can see the environment positioning could be a little bit better. So what we're going to do is select this environment texture node and press Ctrl T. And what it does is it automatically adds a texture coordinate and a mapping coordinate, but it is not supposed to do it by default. If you remember, we went to this edit and we enabled that no triangular add-on. That is why we are able to do this. Let's go down to this rotation property over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this z-axis somewhat like this, and I'm going to place this over here, change this y-axis like this, and I'm going to place mine over here something like this. What we're going to do is go back to our object properties, and we are finally done with this entire scene. I'm going to go back to layout, and what I'm going to do is press Z key on my keyboard and go to this rendered option. And now you can see that we have got our scene in place. So as you can see that we are finally done with the modeling, texturing parts, and the final part is rendering it out. You can just render it out by going to this render option over here and render image. Also the shortcut for that is F12 key. So as you can see, this looks really cool, but we are rendering it using EEVEE. If you want more realistic looking results, here's what you can do. Just close out of there and go to this render properties over here and go to this render engine and select Cycles. And Cycles is a realistic looking renderer, and what it does is it is a physically based render engine. So in short, it gives like really good looking images. So press F12 and let it render out. So we are finally done with the render, and as you may have noticed that the Cycles render engine is like really slow, and that is for good reason, because the Cycles rendering engine is a physically based rendering engine, and it has to do a lot of calculation behind the scene. So you might expect some long render times. So as we are done with the render, if I zoom in close, you can see that there is a lot of grain in this image, and that is because we have used very small amount of sample count. So if you want to improve this and remove all of these noises, what you can do is this. I'm just going to cross out of here and go to my render properties over here. If your computer has a GPU installed, you can go ahead and select this GPU compute option from here, and if you have this adaptive sampling option over here, click that on, and this I think is available in Blender 2.90. So yeah, and then you also have this sampling section over here, in which you can see that we have got our viewport samples at 32 and our render samples at 128. So if you increase this sample count, it will have less amount of noise and grain to it. So I'm gonna make this at 500, and also you may or may not see noise after you have increased your sample count. So there is another way to decrease the noise, and that is by going to this denoising section over here, and in this render section over here, just click it on, and here you will find three options: NLM, optics, and open image denoise. So this open image denoise is by Intel and it works really great, and this optics denoiser is from NVIDIA. I have never used this NLM denoiser before, but if you have an NVIDIA card, you may be able to use this optics. Since I'm using an NVIDIA card, I'm gonna select optics, and also if you don't have an NVIDIA one, you can always use this open image denoiser. Okay, so I'm gonna render this out once more. Alright, so we are finally done with the render. So as you can see, if I zoom in closer, you can see that we don't really have a lot of noise going on here. So if you want to save this image, what you need to do is go to this image tab over here, save as, and you can pick a location where you want to save it. Okay, and I'm going to save this in my desktop, and I'm going to name this abstract artwork, and I'm going to save as image. Alright, so we are finally done with the video, and I really hope that you guys learned something new today. And yeah, if you choose to make this exact render, feel free to tag me on my Instagram. I would really love to see what you guys made. And yeah, that's it for today's video. I will see you in the next video. Till then, stay safe and learn something cool.